YouTube, what's up? In today's video, we're going to be doing some more CCNP labs that I did to pass my CCNP ENARSI. And Encore, this one is more geared towards the ENARSI. So as you can see, I got a Cisco document pulled up here. Configure VRF leaks on iOS. So this is a cool lab to do because it talks about VRFs. You got to configure BGP, EIGRP, and then you have to actually leak those routes amongst themselves from a VRF, which in this case was going to be VRFA, into the global routing table. So this is cool. This lab, I'm going to tell you guys one thing that was giving me issues when I was first doing it and studying it was route targets. So we're going to talk about that at the end and why it was giving me such a hard time, but route targets, route distinguishers are really important to make this thing work. So I'm just going to go through the introduction like the document goes through. I see a lot of CCIEs talk about how important it is not just to do Google searches or get an answer for ChatGPT. It's really important to look at actual Cisco documents. And after going through this lab from a Cisco document, I can definitely agree. So this document describes and provides examples, configurations for common methods of VRF route leaking. The scenario I had labbed out is scenario 1. So it's pretty simple. All you need is 3 routers. One of them, like the diagram shows, you're going to configure for BGP. You're going to configure, for BGP and EIGRP on each indicated side for the VRF. And then the last one, EIGRP. Now, a little bone to pick. Obviously, I don't know how to configure this just from looking at the topology and what needs to be done. But when I show you guys the configs here in a couple seconds, I can definitely see like a beginner maybe having a rough time if they're trying to go straight into this. So this lab, you really needed prior knowledge of doing labs with BGP, EIGRP, and all that, because someone that's never configured BGP probably gonna go in here and like, okay, how do I make this work with address families and all that? So that's my only bone to pick because it doesn't go into that. But I guess it is what it is. But luckily for you guys, if you're new to all this stuff, I'm gonna be going through line by line config to make sure everybody understands what I did and can follow that step by step. All right. So before we head into the lab, let's keep looking at this. So ideally, when you set this all up at the end or at the beginning, you're going to see the global routing table from leak and the VRFA routing table from leak. And then after that, you're going to configure, you can either do a route map with a prefix list or access list. And then you're going to do these commands right here, which we're going to go through, redistribute it. And then you should see this as the end result, which is, as you can see, VRFA has global routes, and the global route has routes from VRFA. So let's go ahead and get right into it. This is let me show you guys this in case anybody's interested in this in the future. So this is a big lab I have set up. I thought I had the routers. I must have deleted them. This is a big lab I have set up that encompasses everything I learned from the CCNP. So definitely drop in the comments down below if you're interested in seeing this whole thing, how it will play out. Warning though, you definitely need a lot of power or on your server that you're running. You could obviously do monolabs from the cloud, but whatever server you're running on, because there's so many nodes, I think I got set up with 96 gigabytes of RAM to run this. So just the FYI, it definitely does require an extra bit of power because it has so many nodes. But you could definitely do this one step at a time. Just the top VRF red and the other VRF blue, maybe even with some loopbacks to skip doing the nodes. But anyway, let's go ahead and get this set up. So let me add the 3 nodes we're gonna be using. I'll fast forward the video while this starts booting up. Alright, so BGP has loaded up, so let's go ahead and start going line by line on this thing. So First thing we're gonna do, obviously go into enable mode and then we're gonna give it the host name BGP. Then we're gonna start with our VRF definition A, route distinguisher, very important. If you guys don't know what a route distinguisher does, it basically just, like the name says, distinguishes a route. So imagine if I'm BGP and I'm advertising 1.1.1, and I have a route distinguisher of 1.1, it would be 1.1 with that IP of 1.1.1.1, right? So that's the main difference there. Next, we're gonna go into the address family. So address family IPv4, and we're gonna give the route target. So route target export 1.1. When I first was doing this lab, nowhere did it say to do this, but it is very important. I ended up, after doing research, realized how important it is to get that done. All right, that's why I said I have a bone to pick. Sometimes it doesn't tell you stuff in the configuration. You gotta figure it out on yourself. It is what it is. Anyway, let's keep going and we'll talk about this later. So route target export 1.1, route target import 1.2. All right, exit out of that. Exit. And then let's go into interface gig 1. We're gonna assign it to VRF A with the IP address that we saw on the lab topology. Now we'll shut on that. Boom. Now we're gonna hop on interface loopback 0, VRF forwarding A IP address that is talked about in the topology. No shut, just to be safe. Exit. Now we're gonna go into the BGP configuration, router BGP1. We're gonna give it the BGP router ID of 1.1.1.1. Boom, and now we're gonna hop into address family IPv4 VRFA. This is what I'm talking about. Like if someone that's never configured BGP, although it's simple when you start doing it in repetition, this might seem like kind of crazy going in the address family and all that. At least it was for me when I first did it. So 172.16.10.10 with the mask. Boom. I'm gonna do the neighbor 10.0.0.1 remote autonomous system 1. Neighbor 10.0.0.1 activate. Boom. That's it. That's all you need for BGP. All right. Now we're gonna be moving on to the leak router. This has more stuff on it. All right. So leak again, same thing. Enable. Let's give it the host name. Leak. Let's give it the VRF definition A. Again, super important. Route distinguisher. Let's do 1.1. Let's go into the address family. Boom. Let's go ahead and do import IPv4 unicast map global. This is gonna be a route map that we're gonna create here in a bit. Global to VRF. Boom. Then we're gonna do export IPv4 unicast map VRF to global. Route target export 1.1 route target import 1.2. Boom, and configure again. And now let's go into our interfaces. Interface gig 1 VRF forwarding A. Boom, let's give it the IP address with the 10.0.0.1 with the mask 252. No shut, exit, boom. Next interface, gig 2. IP address 192.168.1.1, 255.255.255.0. Boom, no shut, exit. Now we go into router EIGRP1, and then we're gonna advertise the network there. with the wildcard mask. Boom. And now we're gonna go into BGP. Because remember, this has BGP and EIGRP. Router BGP, address family IPv4, VRF8. Boom. Neighbor 10.0.0.2, which is the BGP router. Remote autonomous system 1, neighbor 10.0.0.2. Activate. Boom. And now that's done. Let's hop into the EIGRP. Boom. Enable. CompT. Hostname EIGRP. Interface gig 1. Let's give it that IP address 192.168.1.2 with the mask. Boom. No shut. Exit. Now we go into the loopback 0. IP address in the lab topology 192.168.1.0. 0.0.255. Boom. Dang, what did I type wrong? Oh, tripping. That's my fault. That's getting confused with my ones. 11.11. 255.255.255. Where am I at? Okay, what I'm saying. 255. Boom. No shut, just to be safe. Exit. Let me see what I got configured. Make sure I'm right. Okay. Now let's go into router EIGRP1 and we're gonna advertise these networks 192.168.11.11. Boom. And we'll do this one even though we don't need to, just to be safe. Boom. You see the adjacency starting to come up. So if we go back to the lab document, it literally tells us this is what we should be looking out for. So show IP route on leak. Let's go ahead and perform that. Boom. Show IP route. So boom, we do see the 192.168 network there, advertised via EIGRP. Now let's do show IP route VRFA, and we see the BGP route advertised in the VRFA. All right. So now what we're gonna need to do is set up those route maps, right? So still on leak. This is what we're gonna do. Let's go into CompT and we're gonna do route map VRF to global. We're gonna do route map global to VRF. All right, let's exit out of there. Let's go back into the VRF definition, address family IPv4, and then we're gonna do the import IPv4. Boom, unicast map, global to VRF, export IPv4, unicast map, VRF to global. Let's get out of there. And now let's go into BGP, router BGP1. Let's go ahead and redistribute now. EIGRP, redistribute EIGRP1. Remember, if I'm trying to redistribute EIGRP into BGP, you configure first what you're going into. So because I'm trying to redistribute EIGRP into BGP, that's why I did router BGP first. So redistribute EIGRP1. Boom. Let's exit out of that. And then router EIGRP1. Redistribute BGP1. Metric 1500. 255, 1500. Boom. Do whatever metric you want. Anyway, Now, because I did the route map, it's just gonna cover everything, right? Um, so I didn't do an access list for the. It tells you to do access list, but that's just to select the networks. But just for the sake of this lab, I didn't. It's still gonna work because it's gonna encompass everything. So if we do a show running config, we see the route map. Boom! It's encompassing everything right there. All right. So boom, and let's see here. So now let's do a show IP route. Boom. So this is the global routing table. Earlier, it did not have the BGP route. Earlier, all it had was the, where's the global routing table that they showed? Earlier, it just had the EIGRP route, right? So now you see the BGP route is in the global routing table. Let's do VRF8 now so you guys can see. And now we also have the EIGRP routes. Obviously, it's showing distributed as BGP because the redistribution. So you can see how cool this thing is to actually leak routes, because as you guys know, when you use a VRF, you're basically almost chopping up the router to be able to make more routes unique, but it's also cool to be able to leak them into another router. Maybe if you're an ISP provider and you need to do that to get to your customer site, whatever it may be. So this is a cool technique to know. Now that we got that working, let me go ahead and explain the route targets and why it wasn't working and why it's so important. So literally, don't hate on me, don't get on me. I literally do this all the time for whatever topic, and I'm gonna read it out to you guys. So anytime I have a hard time understanding something, this is what I do. I'll go on to ChatGPT, Gemini, whatever it may be. I'll show like the config of what I did, how it wasn't working the first time, what I did to fix it, and if I know what I did to fix it is working, but I still don't understand why, I'll go in and say, explain this to me like I'm a middle schooler, right? So this is the answer you will kind of get. So long story short, the trick, which is using the route targets, you discovered was that by using these route target stamps on your VRFs, you were telling the router exactly what information it should go into and out of those secret rooms. It uses secret rooms to basically describe your routes with the route distinguisher assigned to them. So the route target is grabbing that from the route map as well and exporting and importing, like you guys saw when we configured it in the leak router, right? In the leak router, let me pull up the config that we did. We did that import IPv4 unicast map global to VRF, grabbing that from the route maps that we made, which is using a route target also. So really, route targets are just ways of identifying, and it labels how things need to move around. So without those specific stamps, the message or the routes might not be sent correctly, right? Because when I originally was doing this lab, I was getting routes to leak from the global routing table to VRFA, but from VRFA I couldn't get it to go to global, and that's because it probably had a miscommunication because I didn't have no route targets. So if you want to do things properly, make sure you do route targets when you're doing this. Obviously, feel free to look up more on your own route targets and different examples, but this is kind of the example I wanted to provide for you guys. I've seen in the comments you guys want to see more BGP, more EIGRP stuff. That's coming soon. So this lab is out the way. I'm going to be showing you guys another lab soon. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please smash that like button and check out the playlist with my other labs. Catch you guys on the next one.